Hola, hola, everybody. How are you doing? Have a good evening. My name is Christian Lamont. Pronouns are he and him, and I am a storytelling and communications manager, Yo Cuento program for Latino Outdoors, and we're so excited to have you all here for our Latino Conservation Week Ranger Talk. So I have some incredible guests, some incredible voices, all with their own personal experiences. All who have had incredible experience with interpretation and being rangers or working within the park system. And I'm just hoping that we can have a lot of fun, learn some things. So if you have any questions for these incredible people, go ahead, drop them in the comments. We will be live on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, and this recording will be available afterwards. So without any further ado, I would like to bring in Stephanie Campos Garcia.
Hola, Christian. Hi, everybody. My name is Stephanie Campos. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I am currently a recreation technician on the Angeles National Forest, a part of the LA Gateway Ranger District. And I'm just really excited to be here and talk about my experience and then hear just my fellow other Rangers' experiences as well.
Wonderful. Great to see you anyway. Next, we'll have Jose Cabello from Latino Outdoors and also Jose.
Hola a todos. My name is Jose Cabello. My pronouns are they, them, ella. And I am an interpretive senior park aide for Redwood National and State Parks on the unceded lands of the Yurok and Tolowa Dene people. And I am currently broadcasting from Wea Ancestral Homelands, or so-called Humboldt County, Arcata, California. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here with you guys today.
Wonderful. It's great to see you also. Next, I'd like to bring in Virginia Delgado Martinez. Virginia Delgado Martinez. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks, Christian, for introducing us. Again, my name is Virginia. My pronouns are she, her. And I'm excited to be here. I have over 10 years in experience working in parks, recreation, and interpretation. I used to most recently work in the East Bay. My family just recently migrated to the island of Hawaii, where I am at right now. Which is the ancestral homelands of Native Hawaiians, also known as the Kanaka Maoli. So I'm just really excited to be here and learn and listen to everyone's stories.
It's great to see you. I'm a big fan of your Instagram work, so it's an honor to have you here with us. Next, we've got Eric Cortez, who's also part of Latino Outdoors. Eric, if you want to say hi.
Hi, folks. My name is Eric Cortez. My pronouns are he, him. I work in Golden Gate National Recreation Area, specifically Fort Point Presidio. I am the lead park ranger, and I both work and live on the ancestral land of the Ohlone Ramaytush. And I'm super excited to be here.
Wonderful. And then last, but certainly not least, we've got a friend to everybody, an inspiration to us all, and just a good person. Cristina, if you want to jump on and introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? I'm on my phone. Thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Cristina Martinez. I use she, her, ella pronouns. And I don't know. Thank you for the really warm welcome, Christian. I really appreciate that. And I'm currently actually in my very first week in my first permanent position with the Park Service. So I'm currently working in Golden Gate National Recreation Area, and my position will be education ranger and helping a little bit of the interpretation side of things. So it's been quite an exciting couple of last days. So I'm excited to experience what it's like to be in an urban park, since most of my National Park Service experience has been mostly in more remote and isolated areas. But I'm really excited. Eric Cortez is one of my coworkers, so it's been really excited to connect with wonderful people so far.
I agree, Francis. This is an all-star crew of Rangers. So actually, I'm gonna second question first because I think it's very helpful for anybody who's tuning in and doesn't really know, myself included, as one of these. I didn't know until I knew. But what is a ranger? What is park interpretation? Does anybody want to go first, and then we can go around?
I guess I can start. I am currently not, my job title is not officially park ranger. I am a recreation technician, and I do a lot of education on the side. However, when someone is thinking about a park ranger, we're thinking about that interpretive park ranger, the ones that wear the hat, the cool hats, the hat that I always wanted to wear, which I do have one. I have been a park ranger. I started my career as a park ranger for the Forest Service, actually. And then eventually I went over to the National Park Service and became an interpretive park ranger officially. And then now I'm a recreation technician. So a park ranger, I would put it in like the person that teaches you about where you are. Does anybody want to jump in on my park ranger, my parky park rangers?
Yeah, maybe. Oh, sorry, Eric.
No. By all means, go ahead.
Yeah, I get this question a lot too because it can be so confusing because when you look at job titles, it's like interpretive specialist, environmental educator. So in my last position, I was actually called a naturalist, and I was in that position for like 7 years. That's another name for park ranger, but they all fall under an umbrella of this word interpretation, right? Like we've all heard interpretation as in like language, right? You know, interpreter for like Spanish and English, but interpreters usually in like the park field, it's more like interpreting the natural resources around you. It's a mission-based communication that tries to tug at the emotional, an emotional level, like getting people to feel something with the resource, whether it's a park or a tree or a bird or flower. That's how I kind of organize the field.
I would say that for me, so ranger isn't in my like title, like my official position title. But to me, it's basically just exactly what Stephanie and Virginia just said. Um, but also including like, environmental education, just being kind of like the person that when a visitor comes to the park, it's oftentimes their very first time ever being in that area. And so you have the special opportunity to engage with that person and kind of just make their trip just extra special by just being a friendly face and welcoming them and just kind of giving them an idea of what's around them, like the natural space that's around them.
I'm gonna go unless someone wants to jump in, but uh, My title is Ranger, and to me, being a Ranger is being able to connect people with the resources, historical, natural, and more specifically, not just connecting any type of resources. Like each individual sites that people work at can uniquely tell a story that other sites cannot. Depending what site you're on, it could be a natural resource, it could be a historical resource, and you're able to make that connection with people to create a transformative experience, an experience that people will remember and want to come back to your site. And this is extremely important for with people of color.
Christina, do you want to say anything?
Oh, I think everybody pretty much really nailed the definition of interpretation, the goals of interpretation, and why we do the work that we do in interpretation, whether that is our main job duty in our job title or whether it's a collateral duty. Even if you're doing rec tech work or even if you're doing fees at any national park or any recreation area, you are going to be doing some level of interpretation. Try to get people and the general public to understand why a lot of these places are so special and try to connect them to these places in many different ways. So really anybody that's interacting with the public, they are doing the job of an interpreter and connecting people to these places in an emotional and intellectual level. So yeah, everybody, got it.
That was incredibly helpful, honestly, and nobody has really ever just explained it to me, so I appreciate that. But I was also thinking as you were all talking, like, how cool it must be to, like, walk up to a park or a trail or a kiosk or someplace and see you and see people who look like me and who talk like me and who share the same, like, cultural knowledges and cultural competence that's so incredibly needed. So speaking of walking up that trail or walking up to that kiosk, would you all mind, like, briefly sharing your journey from your first connection to nature? Like, think about, like, when you were a little kid and you're like, I love this. Or when you were an adult and you're like, this is the first time I've done this. And then how that kind of sparked your journey to your current kiosk or your adventures or your hats that you've worn. How about we start with Eric?
I knew you were going to pick me, and I was ready. You know, a Ranger got to be ready. Originally, so I'm from South Central, and like my journey is like probably not the same as most people from South Central. Like, I honestly don't remember my first time in nature because like my family was going out into these areas. Like my dad, he took me out hunting, camping, like with my whole family, like 60 plus of us going camping. So to me, it was always something that like I felt like I belonged in these areas, even if like people were telling me that I didn't. And that's such an empowering feeling. So to me, like that's essentially like my connection with nature.
I appreciate that. 60 is a lot of people to go camping with, and I know that we come prepared. Christina, how about you?
Since I grew up in an urban setting, I actually lived the first 9 years of my life in Mexico City. So really the concept of a national park wasn't something I grew up with, but we did have a lot of urban parks, a lot of really, small things to do. And urban parks would consist of, soccer fields and that type of recreation. And, Mexico City does have one of the largest urban parks in the world, Parque de Chapultepec. So I remember growing up to El Parque de Chapultepec and just being around in nature that way. And even in my grandma's house, she had a little garden. And I would always, this is what my mom tells me, that she would always find me all in the garden looking for bugs or just kind of getting lost in there. So I think those are some of my earliest memories of nature, just little green spaces around in an urban setting, just enjoying life in the outdoors in that way.
I too have great memories of Parque Chapultepec. Those are my earliest memories, honestly. Dust, big roots from trees, canopy, and the city, of course. Virginia, how about you?
Sure. So my earliest memories are also like Eric, evolves around family. Um, I think remembering going back all the way till I was like, I don't know, 5 years old, my parents did take us camping a lot. They're kind of like, I like to consider them like my first people who I knew are like outdoor influencers because they really literally just would take our neighbors who might have not been camping, lived in a very multicultural community in San Diego, and we would just bring the neighbors, and my dad would bring his students because he worked at the university. And so I always thought nature was a place for everybody. I kind of grew up with that concept. However, like we weren't wearing the Patagonia and the Columbia, like we see like the typical nature magazines wear. We just came whatever we had. And later, as I grew up into middle school, I went to outdoor school, and that kind of sparked my entire world of knowing that you people can work in national parks. It's the first time I seen a ranger, first time actually knowing like we are an official national park, and that was in the Marin Headlands. And later on, I worked in the Headlands, which is a national park outside the Golden Gate. That kind of jump started my entire career.
That is very cool. And also, like, the opportunity for little kids to see that, and then, you all are those icons or those larger than life figures that little kids can see now and inspire. Well, I'm not a little kid, but you all inspire me anyway. How about you, Jose?
I have a very, very complicated relationship with the outdoors. I grew up in Southern California in Pomona, which is about 30 miles east of Los Angeles. So pretty urban, dry area, basically the desert. But as a kid, I was kind of like forced to go outside. Like I remember enjoying being outside, but a lot of the times being forced to be outside. My grandpa would make me go on these horrible like 5 mile hikes at Mount Baldy, and I just absolutely dreaded it. I hated going out there with him. But the moments that I did enjoy with my family, we would go to the river. So there was like just up the Mount Baldy, there's river access that we would go to. And it wasn't until later on in life that I actually enjoyed the outdoors a bit more. I grew to appreciate it. I met a good group of friends at my community college at Mount Sac, and yeah, they all were super in love with the outdoors. It was the first time I had ever gone camping was with a group of them, and definitely went on a lot of hikes out there in SoCal. And yeah, today, I'm in the position that I am because of those connections, those positive connections that I made with people and with the outdoors, that has allowed me to appreciate it more, especially in in my new role with the parks, being able to make that positive connection with people. Sometimes we'll get phone calls and people are like, it's my first time camping, I don't know what to bring. And I just remember telling this one person in particular, honestly, bring whatever makes you comfortable. Like, it doesn't matter if people are telling you that you're extra for bringing whatever it is, all the comforts, like bring it with you, because for next time you'll realize, okay, maybe I can go without the back massager. There was no outlets, I couldn't plug it in, so I think whatever makes you feel comfortable is the right path towards your positive connection with the outdoors.
It's me. I'm extra. I love to be comfortable when I go out. And it's nice that for all the self consciousness, like, am I doing this right? Whatever that means. That there are experts in the field that are like, you got it. Whatever it is you're doing, yes, it's right. And Stephanie, how about you?
All right. So my earliest and my love for the outdoors actually came from my grandmother. She was was from a small village in Aguascalientes called Villa Juarez. My mom would send me every summer there to spend from 1 to 3 months with her, and I mean, we didn't have any running water, no fire. Like we were living the camp life pretty much. And she would take me out to El Monte to go cut nopales, and we'd go on these long hikes. I didn't know we were hiking, but here we are, going to go get some food to bring it back. Um, that is my earliest connection. Like always, my grandmother. She was the plant lady, the healer. So I really owe a lot of it to her. Moving on from that, I originally wanted to be an astronaut, but science is hard. So I became an artist. However, once I was in college, I think it was my junior year, I made connections with friends who ended up being Boy Scouts. They took me camping for the very first time when I was about 20 years old. I had never ever set foot in a forest, in a park, anything. So this was very unreal. I went shopping at Walmart for my tent, for my boots, for my little stove, everything. um, and yeah, after that camping trip with my friends, I fell in love with the outdoors. That really was like, man, like this is awesome. I saw people coming to collect seeds. I was like, how does he work here? Eventually, I traveled over to my first park, which was Sequoia National Park, and I saw my first ranger program. It was someone that did not look anything like me. So the questions that I had were like, well, how do you work here? Like, do I have to look like that? Or, the questions that we all have when we enter these spaces and we don't see ourselves represented. Yeah, but then after that, I just kind of started doing my own research, meeting people, making connections, and honestly, I just applied. I was already an established teaching artist, and I was like, this is not for me. I really want to follow my true passion. And here I am today. I'm glad to be doing this work again after a 2-year hiatus.
It's incredible, and I want to feel that, like, even though these are unique experiences, there's so many people out there that are like following along or learning about Latino Conservation Week, Latina Conservation Week, that are like, I can relate to that, and seeing these fields being represented, and it's, may not be something that somebody else has ever heard. So I really appreciate all of you sharing this. This is going to be a quick round robin kind of question. Basically, first thing that pops into your mind is the answer. No wrong answers. But the question is, what does conservation cultura mean to you? And we'll start with Virginia.
To me, that's a really good question. I actually thought about that, before we went on here, because I really like the way it sounds. And to me, at first, I think of conservation of our stories, doing what Latino Outdoors is doing right now. Is this live is going to be recorded and it's going to be conserved, and it's going to be, we're not going to lose these stories. So many of us work in parks where we have to find stories of people of color, and it's really hard because when I worked at, I know it's supposed to be short. Where I worked, we only had one narrative of a type of person who lived on this land. So when I think of culture, when I think of that, I think of conserving the stories of our culture and everyone else's culture to last for the next generation.
All right, I said no, there are no right or wrong answers, but that was a great answer. My favorite, sorry. Okay, Jose, you're next. What does conservation cultura mean to you?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about it, same like Virginia before the panel. I believe conservation cultura to me is just basically think about ways in which conservation blends with your own culture. So I guess for me, like something that Stephanie said earlier was with I think you said your grandma, cutting nopales. It brought up a very like vivid like childhood memory in which my grandpa Elias, que en paz descanse, I would go with him as a kid to a local park, which was like just straight up the street from our house. And we would just go and collect cans, like just, pick up aluminum cans. And then we would take them to the recycling center. And then whatever money we collected, we would go and he would buy me lunch. So that's kind of like a way in which I think of conservation and culture is like being able to spend time with your elders and the people that you love, and doing things that are ecologically sound, friendly. So that's all I'll say for now.
Okay, that's also my favorite answer. I'm seeing a pattern. Stephanie, how about you?
For one, I'd like to say that we are the original conservationists. That tupper in your fridge that is butter, but you have frijoles in there. We're the originals. To me, conservation cultura definitely has to do with making conservation a part of our current culture. For example, when I would go to Mexico and I would go have a day out in the campo with my cousins, and then I would see them littering, and I'd be like, hey man, like this is our land, like we have to protect it, like just kind of instilling those things in our families, within our communities, making conservation like a big deal. We're already doing it, like Jose said, the recycling. I know many of us recycled growing up. We would recycle containers. We would reuse the bags. I'm sure every single one of us has like a bunch of bolsas underneath the sink, the originals. And yeah, that's just kind of implementing that conservation in our culture already.
Amazing. Yeah, and you're getting, like, I'm seeing comments, my tia's on the TV. Your family's very proud of you, and appreciate everybody who's watching. Christina, how about you?
Everybody's answers has been so amazing. And I think, the common theme that I'm finding is that, conservation cultura is just redefining the word conservation itself and reframing it. Especially, we are aware the dominant narrative of conservation tends to center, elite white men, and it completely erases what conservation is and conservation efforts all around the world, especially in Latin America. So when I think of conservation cultura, I think of all the indigenous groups in areas like Chiapas that are constantly fighting for land rights and their own rights, against development that is threatening the rainforest ecosystem down there, and all the people that are fighting to preserve their culture, which is closely tied to the land. So that's really what I think of, all the people and all the activists that have been lost to violence, because unfortunately a lot of activists in Latin America get murdered. So it's honoring the work of those people in our culture, especially. I think of this very important environmentalist. I forgot his full name, but he was doing a lot of conservation for the monarch butterflies in Michoacan, and he unfortunately got murdered not too long ago. So conservation culture is really honoring those in the past, in the present, and in the future that are constantly fighting for our land and all the inhabitants in it to have a fair chance in this world.
100%. And yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing up the people who are disappeared and murdered, doing the work of protecting our earth. Yeah. Eric, how about you? Conservation.
I'll try to keep it short because y'all took all my answers. But I feel like the first thing I thought when I saw conservation cultura, it was like an attempt at redefining and reframing that we are a culture of conservation. Whether it was a forced culture of conservation, sometimes you have to do that, and that's like you gotta cut your milk gallons so you can put them as potters, and bring nature in your environment, similar to all the plants you got behind you, Christian. So it very much, for me, it's like coming from like an environmental studies background. I definitely resonate with everything that you're saying. I didn't see myself, like, it's hard. I don't consider myself an environmentalist because the way it is framed right now, I don't see myself in that word. But similar to conservation cultura, I could see myself in that.
I appreciate that, and the shout out to my plants. Somebody called me a plant papi. I was like, okay, all right, new one. But quick question, just a time check. Are you all okay with staying a little longer, talking a little bit more? Is that all right? Fantastic. And Homero Gomez was the monarch butterfly activist in Michoacan. As mentioned by Eduardo on our comments. Okay, so continuing the conversation, we'll get to the work advice in a second. I want to ask, speaking of people who are making a difference, and I know you were all like floating names around in the Instagram chat that we had. Who is your personal ranger hero, or somebody that you look up to in the interpretive and storytelling and advocacy work that you all do? Who wants to go first? Hey, Stephanie, okay.
I only want to go first because I need to put somebody on blast. For many of us, a ranger hero or any hero in general is someone that's super out of reach, maybe someone that's make-believe, maybe someone who's been a ranger that's like 80 years old now. For me, it's my peer, Cristina Martinez. Honestly, like, she came into my life at the perfect time. It was my first season working at Sequoia. She was my lead, and I was so grateful to have her there. This was during the pandemic. We had a lot of time to spend together. She really taught me how to build curriculum, how to build programs, how to be more confident when presenting myself, and kind of to let go of this imposter syndrome that I have, because I jumped into this career kind of late in the game. My background is in art education. So for me to even consider myself like a conservationist or something, it still kind of blows my mind. Kind of like Eric says, well, I don't consider myself this. I'm trying to believe that I am, because I'm very passionate about the work. And Christina was one of those people that were like, you totally are. You're super relatable. You know, you can inspire other people, you know, that you can, you know, set your mind on something and do it. And this is where I am today. So thank you, Christina. You definitely are my hero, my ranger hero. No llores. Yeah, that was it from me.
Okay, not to put you on the spot, Ranger Hero, but Christina, who's yours?
Oh, thank you, Steph. I'm not gonna cry. I honestly, I find inspiration from all of my peers, because being an interpreter is constantly revising and revisiting your programs, knowing that they can improve, and also just checking in on yourself, right? Who is this serving? Who is this catering to? So just every time I get feedback from any of my peers, especially like when Stephanie and I had a pretty challenging season in Sequoia in 2020, we were trying to push through creating programs that probably we were never going to be able to give because of COVID restrictions. But just bouncing those ideas back and forth with peers like Stephanie has been really rewarding. So Steph, you are also a very important part of my peer and friend circle. And I also do want to give a shout out to an interpreter that has done a lot of really important work. I was really lucky to see his bear program in Yosemite, and that's Ranger Shelton Johnson. It was a great program. It was like a 90-minute program. When I first got there and found out it was going to be 90 minutes, I was like, wow, that's a pretty long program. But honestly, the way he told the story of bears in Yosemite, it made time go by so fast. So if you're in Yosemite and you have the opportunity to see a Shelton Johnson program, I highly recommend it. Ever since I saw his program, I was like, I want to be that type of interpreter that makes time go by so fast and leaves you wanting more. Because as an interpreter, you want your visitors to finish the program, but you still want them wanting more. So that's how Shelton Johnson made me feel. So I highly recommend checking out one of his programs. And that's an interpreter that I look up to who has done really awesome work with also the Buffalo Soldier story as well.
I appreciate that. So it makes the who I'm asking next pretty easy because I got a photo of South Central Ranger in Ranger Shelton last month when Latino Outdoors was up in Yosemite. Ranger Shelton did a beautiful, like really, really good Spanish interpretation. Yeah, very engaging. Eric, who's your Ranger hero?
Damn. I need an hour. Y'all want a program? Hold up. But all right, real quick. Let's see. Araceli Montero, Benny Badam, Rafael Velasquez, John Cantwell, Jasmine Reinhardt, Emily Levine. I'm essentially, and there's more. So sorry if I didn't give you a shout out, but you up there. But essentially, like all these Rangers are Rangers that have helped me get to where I am. Kelsey Drew, Rangers who have helped me get to where I am. Whether they help me by making me believe that I could be a Ranger, giving me the tools necessary, showing me essentially how this whole complicated system that the National Park Service is, and more importantly, making it accessible for me too. All these folks didn't necessarily need to do any of that because that's not their job, but they chose to do it, and they chose to be mentors. And to me, that makes them heroes, you know? At least they're my heroes. So that's my quick program.
I love the fact that we're able to take some time and shout out the people that made a difference. Virginia, how about you?
Thank you. This is such a hard question because there's so many people I look up to, but I'm going to break it down to like three people. One, Betty Reese Hoskins, who's one of the oldest park rangers. She just retired at 100 years old. She was a ranger at Rosie the Riveter National Park. And she's an inspiration to me because she shows up in her uniform like all the time. And that's because to give hope and inspiration that, hey, anybody can wear this uniform. If I can at my age and, in my race, she's an African-American woman. And that's so inspirational to me as Afro-Latina, how seeing others in the uniform. Also, I would like to say Raphael Allen, who was a ranger at Port Chicago, who did great work around hard topics, interpreting race in the military. So it's a really touchy subject. I was able to meet him when I met him through Outdoor Afro, and I got to work with him as a ranger, which is really nice. And then my third person, because I'm somebody who often looks back at, our ancestors, my ancestors as inspiration, would be my grandpa. I was like, everybody's sharing their grandparents' stories. I have to mention him because I often reflect while doing my work because he actually always wanted to be a ranger and never did. I found this out after he died. He actually worked at Santa Clara Parks in Rec as a janitor. And he always wanted to be a ranger. However, he had a language barrier. He would only do interpretive programs if the rangers were sick. And he always wanted to do that. He was always leading my dad to like Clear Lake to do things. And he just, from what I've heard, he always lit up when he had a chance to do interpretive programs, even though he was, he mostly had to clean the bathrooms, do the trail work, and take out the trash. So I looked at him as inspiration, as honorary ranger in my eyes. And through him, it gives me inspiration to wear the uniform, to wear the hat for him and for others, to inspire others as well.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And always so important to include our ancestors and maybe people who didn't hold certain qualifications or, government ranking or whatever the system is. We'll get to that in a second. But to recognize like the people who, did the work anyhow and inspired us all the same. Jose, how about you?
I think similarly to what other people had mentioned, to be honest, I don't know a whole lot of Rangers, like the famous ones that you all mentioned, just because I'm so new to just working for parks in general and just getting to know everybody. But so far, I think just having networked with, even just with the people on this panel has been so inspiring. Like I look to my peers for inspiration. I look to Virginia. I don't know if you remember, but I think a few years ago, before I even started working for parks, I had reached out to Virginia and I was like, hey, I think what you do is really cool. How do I do that? And this was through like Instagram, like DMing her. And yeah, she's just like, yeah, dude, like here's some resources that she gave me and just kind of look at, stuff where you are. And that's, yeah, I was fortunate enough that, through volunteering with Latino Outdoors, I met Alfonso, who at the time was working for the I forget the acronym, so many acronyms, the Student Conservation Association. And I was able to go to the National Park Service Academy at Grand Tetons. And I met Millie there, Mildred Jimenez, who I also look for to inspiration. I think she's incredible. I think she's a badass and who is just so unapologetically herself, regardless of whatever pushback she gets from, from whoever, and just getting to know everybody. Eric, I've known you for such a short amount of time, but I think you're really awesome. Estefany, I've known you for a while through Latino Outdoors, and I just enjoy like watching, all like the things that you post about what you're doing at work. And of course, like Cristina, like I feel like we've developed this online friendship, and I think you're also incredible. And just getting to know everybody on this panel, even if it's just, virtually, hopefully, if fate, has it in store, maybe eventually in real life. But yeah, I could keep going, but I'm just going to leave it there. I just look to my peers for inspiration, and I feel like we're not in competition with each other, and I think that's beautiful. It's like, if anything, we're just like there to support each other and keep elevating each other. So yeah.
All of you, this is great. And I hope that you all like continue the chats. Well, you do anyway, but like it's so interesting. Social media can be such a double-edged sword, but clearly here it is a connector, and it helps people identify and reach out thousands or hundreds of miles away and be like, "Hey, I see you. We have a lot in common. Let's just be in existence together in this oftentimes rough world." That's great. And you are all, for the record, my Ranger heroes. And yeah, elders, individuals, mentors, peers, like all of these people are heroic in their own way. Like, not all heroes wear capes kind of thing. Okay, so then let me ask a question that like we can go down rabbit holes for sure. But for the sake of like, imagine this as a bullet point of heroes wear hats. I love that. So imagine this as a bullet point kind of answer. If you could give one piece, what is one piece of practical advice for someone who wants to go into this line of work? Like practical, like here's the application, those kinds of things. Who wants to start with the practical bullet point advice? Eric, go for it.
You got to work smart, not hard. Well, but hard when you need to work hard.
Okay, Christina.
Keep track of all of your paperwork, especially if you go into federal service. Those forms are so important. And we can maybe talk about this later in another panel, but that paperwork is super important, especially when you want to try to apply to permanent employer, even for seasonal work. Just keeping track of your paperwork is super important. I cannot emphasize that enough.
All right, good tips. Virginia, how about you?
Be really good at technology. We're moving forward and doing things virtual. I had to, shift to all virtual programming, and knowing how to do video, audio. Like, if you're a tech person, doesn't mean you can't be an outdoor person. You can do both, and people are looking for that.
All right, very practical. Jose, how about you?
I think mine would be that I think regardless of your background, there's a position for you within parks. If you love taking videos, there's positions where that's literally all you do, video and photography. If you like talking to people, interpretation. If you kind of like working behind the scenes, there's administrative positions. So just kind of whatever niche, whatever like hobbies or whatever your interests are, there's a position for you.
Stephanie?
I think the most practical one I would say is become familiar with USA jobs and have your federal resume ready to go, because federal resumes are very different than your standard resume. So just become best friends with USA jobs.
Super helpful advice, the kind of thing I wish I had going out of high school. But I hope if you're listening, and don't just keep this knowledge to yourself, share it far and wide. We'll have a link available. But yeah, it's the practical, but also being shared through the personal. So it's not just a website you're going to. These are living, breathing, amazing people who are telling you this is a good way of getting around. This is a good way of doing what you want to do. So yeah, take notes, like Jorge mentioned. Okay, so speaking of videos and virtual, Virginia, like I have seen, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen your tarantula videos. You're kind of like Instagram famous for those. But this is a skill that you bring to kind of help make public lands more inviting, inspiring, safe, and accessible. What is, can you talk a little bit more about your video making and your virtual storytelling that you bring to your role?
Oh, thanks for shouting out the tarantula, Hazel. My old position, I got to know Hazel. She lived on my desk, and then in the visitor center. But it was really easy. Animals are really easy to show because people automatically are drawn to them, which we help to encourage conservation. People are, we use animals all the time, snakes, tarantulas, not to scare people, but to get people curious and want to know more in a safe area. And sometimes that safe space, now we're learning, is virtual. And that was definitely something that was a learning curve for me. I am so not tech savvy at all. Just even to get on here, I had to call my husband 3 times how to work my audio. But my thing is that I learned during the pandemic, everybody had to pivot, right? We did not stop our programming. Me and my agency at the time, East Bay Regional Parks, we were very quick to offer virtual programming. And what we did was we turned our visitor center, where we welcome guests, into a studio. And as somebody who's not tech savvy, that was so challenging for me. I took pretty much hours trying to learn video editing. Just writing scripts was also a skill. We even had somebody train us on how to do record videos. It's a whole different type of art, and it's still something I'm still trying to learn. I know we're all getting rusty because we're getting back in person, but it's really a great way to connect to audience, especially as that first step for those people who might not be comfortable with the outdoors. Getting online, hopping on Instagram, hopping on live, or doing a trivia on Facebook, a trivia night on Facebook is a great way to get people connected. And step by step, maybe they'll come to the park, and then maybe next will actually go to your program. So it's a way to get people into the door, into the parks. And again, like I said, not tech savvy, but if you put in the extra work, take a little extra classes, it does pay off in the end. And I got so much, I got to meet so many people and reach audiences from all over the world who I would have never met otherwise. So yeah, I know Jose, he and his agency has positions just for that, and people who are just virtual programs. I think they're called ports in some agencies. But for me, I had to learn that all by myself. But if you are somebody who's interested in that, look into that as well, the ports.
I appreciate that. And yeah, no, I agree 100% that like these virtual events, like we can't let go of them because they really do, it'll never be as accessible. We'll always try to make things more accessible. It's always work that has to be done. But having these virtual options for somebody to be able to see what they're going to head into or what they can expect, or if they can't make it out, this is what they can experience in one way or the other to engage the senses. So I appreciate your work with that. Does everybody else want to go over real quickly, like what storytelling means to them, the importance of storytelling in your positions or in your life? Stephanie, I see your hand.
I feel like storytelling has been an overarching theme in my entire existence. That was kind of when I was an artist, my work was centered around dialogue and storytelling. And one of the main reasons why that was so important to me is because of what we can do, the power of someone's story. For me, hearing other people's stories, how they came to be stories, like that question that we asked earlier, just kind of puts things into perspective for me. I don't feel as isolated or alone in things that I may not know. And I also like to share my own story with folks that, maybe dream of a career in conservation or just working outside, and just saying, hey, like, this is how I started. Like, I don't really have an educational background on this, but here I am, and I'm doing the work, and I'm just kind of trying to spread that through my experience. And storytelling, I think, is the best way to get that message across.
Jose, how about you?
Yeah, I think storytelling is just kind of allows for people to kind of listen to different narratives, right? I feel like a lot of the times, majority of like national parks and state parks, you kind of get like this one narrative, right? Kind of like a sugar coated narrative of like settlers came and indigenous people were friendly to them, but that we know that's not the case. But I think through storytelling we're able to tell our own lived experience and our own truths. Some of the programs that I do kind of have to do with my own culture, right? Which kind of fits into conservation cultura, is like I have the opportunity to engage with people so that they can learn possibly something new or something they hadn't known about, about myself or my own culture. So I think storytelling is super important because you get to, expand the narrative and you get to open people's eyes to new experiences.
Christina, how about you?
I think both Stephanie and Jose have really kind of gotten down to the core of what storytelling is, amplifying stories that have been erased purposefully. because of colonial perspectives and narratives. But I also do see storytelling as not just me as an interpreter, me telling you what the story is as well. It's this collaboration. I feel like the interpretation field as a whole is going from what the Park Service calls sage on the stage, like the ranger just talking at the audience. We're kind of moving from that to now this audience-centered experience and collaborating with the audience in the storytelling. Storytelling is not just me sharing the main story, right, in the program. Storytelling should also open up the floor to others who may want to share their stories because they feel so connected to this main story that I may be talking about that it motivates them to share their personal stories and co-creating this wonderful program together. So storytelling is not just a one-way street. It is a two-way street or multi-way street where people are sharing with each other, kind of like a conversation, really. That is how I started to view storytelling as.
Eric, how about you?
So okay. I know interpretation is a type of storytelling, and like I'm gonna tell you up front, I'm a great interpreter, I'm a great facilitator, but like I'm not the best storyteller. Like if I were to tell you a story, like it's so nonlinear, and it goes from this, and then it goes has up and down to explain all this, to explain this, and it's like this whole spider web. And like I could talk for an hour, but like it's like I'm a great interpreter, but storytelling, that's something that like I've seen people who like Shelton, like he's a great storyteller, and like will I ever get on his level? Maybe not, you know. But to me, like seeing how some people are so easily can weave themselves into the stories, and use that aspect to touch people in a way that like that it isn't necessarily possible in a single dialogue. That wow, you know, where you'll come 20 years later asking for the ranger who gave you that program. I've seen that firsthand. I've seen people meet that ranger, and you like wow, you know, storytelling is so incredibly powerful. It's something that we our ancestors have been doing since time immemorial, and like to be in a part of an organization and to be in a position where I could uplift stories that typically aren't uplifted for various reasons. It's such an empowering feeling that like I have to think about everything I say, because everything that you say, especially in uniform, has a power that you don't even know. And sometimes people will tell you, but other times, like they won't tell you. They won't tell you how empowering you were. They won't tell you how what you said made them think critically. But it's yeah, storytelling is something that like I constantly think about, as you can tell. Like even this is nonlinear, but I'll leave it at that.
I mean, and it's also kind of part of nuestra cultura. Like just the dinner table is non-linear, you know, like so much happens. Virginia, do you want to talk real quick about storytelling? I know we talked about your filmmaking, but
Sure. Everything that everyone said is just spot on. Just to like piggyback on Eric, at first time I grew up in the Bay Area for like half my life. I just went to like Alcatraz for the first time a couple years ago, and Eric was my interpreter, and it was really amazing. I think you're a great storyteller, actually, and interpreter. So I just have to say that. But you're right. Like we have a lot of power when you're wearing the hat. My old colleague Ira used to say the magic hat because that is a position of influence and power. And just a quick story, talking about storytelling. In my last part, a colleague and us, we all decided to tell stories that were beyond just a narrative, pioneer story of coal mining in the East Bay. We decided to focus a year on untold or less told stories. We did a story about the Chinese miners that most nobody knew about in the area. All the pictures we had were of Caucasian miners, right? And so we decided to finally do a story and talk more about the Asian miners, that there are no pictures because the pictures were erased through the racism at the time, right? And then that sparked a conversation in our community in the East Bay. And later on, that caused change. Later on, the mayor of the town of Antioch actually apologized for the mistreatment of the Asian miners in the town. So we do hold a lot of power as storytellers. We're able to ignite change in the community. And I know that was a story about our Asian American brothers and sisters, but imagine if we all told those untold stories of, people of our own culture, how powerful and what that change can lead to in the future. So I find telling these stories as an honor, and you're right. Oh, you're right about how powerful that is.
And there's no doubt about it that stories can change the world, and for the better. And when people look back 100 years from now, 50 years from now, 200 years from now, and all of your names will be in history because of things like this. Yeah, like this is an artifact. This file, this link will be looked at in the future. So I'm so grateful for you all telling your stories and for being part of this history making. I know it's Latino Conservation Week, but this is such an important conversation, and I read you all talking about like having more, and I just want to invite you all, like, let's do this again. Let's continue the conversation. There's not enough streaming hours in the world, but I would love to invite you all to come back and pick this back up where we are, get into some more intricacies, some more advice. But before we leave, I have a quick question. Again, one of these bullet point things. What is one of your favorite fun facts that you like to tell people about, or something that you picked up about either outdoor recreation or conservation or the outdoor world or your work? What is one little tidbit that you're like, oh, this always gets them? I submitted the questions beforehand.
I can go. I feel like every time I shared with visitors in Sequoia how long those trees lived, up to like 3,000 years old, it was always very mind-blowing to them. Just even if you put into a historic perspective, like some of these trees were seedlings when the Wall of China was being constructed, and just putting that in time periods would always blow their mind, and just shows how important it is to take care of our planet, because we have ancient beings that have so much knowledge and have been through a lot. So I think just the longevity of sequoia trees has always just really amazed me.
Hey, Stephanie, I see you about to talk.
Yeah, I think for me, it was when I started my career as a park ranger. I would do interpretation atop a ski resort. And it was I worked at the Coconino National Forest, and I would be doing kind of just greeting visitors and letting them know where they were at, where they were looking at, and you could see the Grand Canyon from where we were standing. But my favorite thing to say to folks was all like, you are standing on a volcano, and this is an active volcanic field, and they would just freak out, especially the kids, and I loved to freak out the kids. I'm not evil, I swear.
All right, very cool. Who else has a fun fact?
I can go. A fun fact that I like to tell people when I do my guided walks at the park, and something that was actually new to me that I learned. So coast redwoods, which are the cousins of the giant sequoias in the Sierras, they're conifers, right? So they do have cones. Their cones are like this small, like the size of a grape, size of an olive. And inside those cones are seeds, and those seeds are probably the size of like a tomato seed, or like, for the Latina people out there, like if you have like a jalapeno seed, probably about the same size. From those seeds grow the tallest trees in the world, like 350 350, 400 feet plus tall trees. So I thought that was pretty incredible. And it blows people's mind every time.
All right, Virginia or Eric, who has a fun fact?
I could go ahead. See, I've never worked in these natural parks. I've usually worked in like historical parks. Like when I was at Alcatraz, I feel like the fact that blew people's mind away was like, because everyone knows that like no one wanted to go to Alcatraz. They wanted to get out of Alcatraz. And then I would tell them, yeah, but a group of people went there, and they were there for 19 months. And they're like, who would want to go? And then I will talk about the 1969 federal occupation. Currently where I work at a Fort Point mostly, and then the Presidio area. And honestly, most of the areas in Golden Gate National Recreation Area, all of them have a history of being put up for a potential attack, for an attack that potentially could have happened. And it blows people's minds, like the amount of resources that went into an attack that never happened. And like the idea of like, is it necessary? Is like this much money that we're spending on the military necessary? Like, to me, it's fun watching people critically think and challenge their lived experience. I find that really fun. I don't know if it's fun for the visitor, but I'm having a good time.
All right, and Virginia, fun fact.
Oh boy. There's so many. But one fun fact I like to talk about my nature walks was about Chaparral, which is kind of like a dry environment in California. It looks like nothing lives there. And I like to talk about grasslands, particularly that the grass that we see that's nice and green in the Bay Area, that's not native to California, actually, even though it turns like golden. And you think, oh, Golden State. It's actually from Europe. It was brought over during colonization. And the native grasses of California are bunch grasses, and they have tap roots that go all the way down, like feet down into the ground. And people are like so surprised, like, what? I thought this natural landscape was true Californian, but it's not. So people get like kind of shocked about that sometimes.
Hey, Kristen.
Go ahead.
Sorry, this is a super fun fact. Cristina actually learned about this today. The color of the Golden Gate Bridge is not golden, people. They lying to you. The color is international orange.
It is international orange. So I can tell that you're all like just listening to this, friends, and such gifted communicators and orators and historians. And just, I really, really appreciate the work that you all have done, are doing, and will do. You all are making waves in the world, positive ripples that will be felt for a lifetime for so many other people. If I'm looking up to you, I can guarantee that there's other people looking up to you. So don't be intimidated. Really, really appreciate your time and all the work that you do and continue to do and will keep doing. Even if it's just a post on Instagram, people are looking at that and they appreciate it. So keep on keeping on. And I wanted to let Stephanie kind of real quick do a little mention, a promo, I guess, of an upcoming Latino Conservation Week event. Stephanie, do you want to mention that?
Yeah, so I'm going to be joining Nature for All for this wonderful event right here, Fiesta y Comunidad. It's going to be the Angeles National Forest, the National Forest Foundation, Sierra Club. I was invited by Sierra Club. Thank you for inviting me. But yeah, just come out, bring your family, meet some of these outdoor organizations, ask questions. You know, how do I get my foot in the door? That's the one that everyone loves to ask. Come meet me. I'll be there. This is local for Los Angeles area.
Wonderful. Also, if you, as the interpreters, rangers, storytellers, etc., want to drop in your personal or your professional Instagram handles into the comments, please do. If you want people to be able to know how to reach you or just follow you and be fans, definitely welcome to do that. And we had such an active panel and so many wonderful comments. Again, I really, really hope that we can continue this conversation. It was just fantastic. And I appreciate you all. And with that, I'm going to call it good. I'm going to call it, say happy Latino conservation, happy Latine, happy Latinx, happy Latina, and happy Latino Conservation Week, happy LCW. And thank you all so much for celebrating Conservation Cultura with us. And have a great night. Get your tacos and enjoy yourselves.
Adios. Bye.
Ba-da-da.